about that here. Anxiety and fear. You can't just go to a party, and I remember the days when I at least believed I could eat anything at the buffet. Or, you know, potlucks were so much fun. Now they're a source of terror. You know, it's like, yeah, unless it's fruit that I know someone prepared, and he's like, okay, and particularly if it's fruit that's like got a peel on it, then it's like, yes, I'm good to go. And then the desire.
Can you talk about that, the fruit with peels? Can you talk about that more?
So if there's a fruit that you know that a knife has not touched it yet, it's like you can control touching what touches the actual food that's going in your mouth. You don't have to worry as much about the cross-contamination. Now, if you're talking about the issue around pesticides, that's a whole other piece.
About peels.
Yeah. Do you want to say something about the peels? Okay.
I have a daughter who's allergic to anything with a peel on it. I don't understand that.
Well, I don't know, but I'll tell you, I come up negative on the allergy test for mango, but twice I've had to have prednisone because I had mango from the peel, and my whole face, everything, totally puffed up. So with mango specifically, I know that there's apparently some sort of sap or something that from the tree that can sometimes get on the peels, and that many people are very sensitive to that. But also I think that the pesticides, with all the GMO stuff and the pesticides, who knows what's on those peels? So that's a whole other conversation for another talk we can have maybe. But yeah, the desire to be normal, the desire to fit in. So in more detail, talking about the social isolation, is before, most of us aren't diagnosed when we're babies. Most of us have been in the world and felt like, however we felt in the world. And when we discover that we're different, then we sometimes can pull away. And for some of the reasons you're describing, not wanting to be a burden, not wanting to be a trouble. Because you may say, no, don't worry, don't feed me. But then people are like, well, no, I want to feed you. And so it's like it becomes their issue wanting to feed you. And then it's just like, oh, you don't want to go there. And so again, you become more isolated, which is very sad. And the avoidance that I was talking about of social situations. And, accidentally popped it. That speaking of some of the losses that we have to deal with, some of the grieving around, is the inability to share in the same way with community and family activities, rituals, traditions. Birthday cakes, as people make them or get them from their favorite bakery or wherever. Just a lot of foods that a lot of people don't want to let go of exactly how they remembered it, and those comfort foods. And so there becomes a disconnect between ourselves and those we love. And it doesn't have to be. But that's actually been part of my passion around Yum as well, is to create a lot of those comfort foods that everybody can enjoy. So it's not like you have a meal that everybody has except the weirdo. Right? It's like who gets the carrot sticks or the salad. Sometimes gets a great meal, but but let's just make a meal that everybody can enjoy. Let's do our best to be inclusive, because it's more fun, and no one has to feel like a weirdo. And you're talking about as an adult. Think about so many kids who have food sensitivities and allergies and special food needs. They really feel weird. Most of them, not all, but most of them. It becomes really difficult. When my daughter decided to be vegan at the age of 12 for humanitarian reasons, she's not 100% now, but she was for about 6 years. Extreme, rigid, teenager kind of mentality there. She's now softened a tiny bit around that. But she found it very difficult because she didn't want to tell people, and so again she did that quiet, silent dance with regard to her own choices around food. Secondly, that idea of I love there was one of the booths is something about breaking bread together. You can no longer break bread together, right, with loved ones. That the term break bread together. I mean, there's songs, let us break bread together, right? That no longer do we really want to break bread together. Except now we are getting some good gluten-free bread, so we can if we decide to be inclusive. And that's part of my dream. That's part of my vision, is for us to be inclusive. And let's bring it together. Let's find ways together. This next one is kind of a big one, and I wrote a bit about it on one of my blog posts on my website. The idea about sometimes just to cope, just to survive, it can be easy to start to move into that place of deception. Not that we're wanting to lie, but again, you're invited to go somewhere, and why aren't you going? You just don't feel like dealing with the food thing, right? You just don't feel like it. But you may not want to go into that and say, I'm just really busy tonight, or I've got other plans, which may be true, but it may not be. Second is about, someone's walking around with food, and you say, no, thank you. And you don't necessarily want to talk about the why all the time. It's not, we are much more than whatever our food sensitivities are, whether it's gluten, whether it's dairy, whether it's potatoes, it doesn't matter. We are much more than that. That's just one little thing. So we don't want to be bothering with that. So sometimes but it's the worst when people say, oh, come on, just have one. And you just say, no, thank you, it's okay. But sometimes we'll say, it's fine, I already ate before I came, because if they're worried that you're hungry, you may not have eaten before you came, but you're just trying to get them off your back. And so, and it's not to celebrate deception, but it's to acknowledge that to survive, we've all probably done it from time to time. And the one you're talking about why we had to leave early, the gathering. So maybe because it's just so stressful, but it also may be that our body's doing crazy things that wouldn't be pretty to be hanging around with other people for the rest of the night, to be experiencing, whether it's a migraine, whether it's having to hang out in the bathroom, or wherever we're having to go. So, we just, I had to leave early. I just had, whatever, something came up. Fear of judgment. Again, I mentioned that. Because we don't want to be seen as high maintenance people. I mean, who wants to be seen as a high maintenance person? What are you, a princess or what? It's like, oh, you need this and that. So it becomes like there's something about our personhood, as opposed to acknowledging, right, our health. And we wouldn't say that for someone who's diabetic. Oh, you're not having the sweets. People would understand. Or if someone's an alcoholic, oh, you're not having alcohol. It's usually like, but for some reason this gets more judgment. Big one. Okay, capital B, big one. Others can perceive us as paranoid, unreasonable, or even antagonistic. Okay? I told you I didn't even put any gluten in it. Why do you want to know what the ingredients are? Why do you want to know where it was prepared and with what tools? Why do you, right? So people get really agitated, and sometimes it's a partner. Especially people when they have children, maybe they have severe nut allergies, and they're going to go visit family, and the family wants to make a cake, or the family wants to make cookies for Johnny. And so mama, oftentimes one of the parents is more fastidious, and then the other parent says, come on, can't we just believe them? They said they're not using any nuts. And then the other parent's like, oh, but honey, we should make sure, because we don't want Johnny to have to EpiPen again, and we have to go to the hospital. And it's like, can't we just trust our family, right? You have to advocate for your family. Exactly. But the perception of paranoia and the pathologizing of being careful as we take care of our bodies or take care of those that we love, whether it's our children, whether it's our partner, whether it's a parent, and so forth. So now we're getting into more fun things. And because the idea that, my friend used this term, I love it, my friend Carrie Kilmartin, we started talking about, when I went to New York, meeting with all these TV people and stuff, we were talking about, what I do, and basically we talked about how we can help shift from being culinary outcasts, well, all these things that we're talking about, these high maintenance people who are really difficult to have around, to being special diet superheroes. And we can be like we can be so awesome because we can make some really delicious food that happens to be inclusive, that everybody can enjoy, or most people. And so we can turn it into something really positive, and then we can start teaching people recipes that they can also use. That's actually where my whole book came from. I didn't plan on writing a cookbook for the world. It was just trying to survive and then trying to share with other people to, and then it just kind of did this whole mushrooming craziness, which has been very exciting. But the more we can share what we learn, and I bet every one of you in here has little tips and tricks up your sleeve, and so the more we start to share that information, then the more we empower everyone. I want to get to to restaurants. I talk to restaurants about, I've got some great recipes for you so you can serve your people more food that they can eat. And you guys can do the same thing. It's like, let's get out there like an army and just be really not just asking them to feed us what it's nice when they can, but the more we just contribute and are generous with our knowledge and information, the more everybody benefits. So this is going to be, that's part of my call to action, is for us to all step up to the plate with this. Yeah, so we've already addressed that piece about not being able to eat the same food others are eating, where one person gets the carrot sticks and celery, and everybody else gets some sort of a lavish thing. Or sometimes it's not uncommon where maybe there'll be a special meal but then there's a dessert that's given, but then there's no dessert for even fruit, nothing for the person who's the culinary outcast. Yes.
I wanted to share. We just recently got back from vacation, and we were going to go on an all-day river raft trip. We had the option to order a gluten-free lunch. Mm-hmm. We did it. We got on the boat on the Colorado River, and the guide says, nobody told me. So you have a 5-hour trip ahead of you, and it's like, everybody's looking at me like, these aliens, what are they, and I'm just like, this is a big deal. It's like 105 degrees, no food, and like I had some energy bars, but it's like,
thank God.
Like an alien, and I opened the lunch, and in there was like sun chips, and gluten-wrapped meat, and an apple. So it's like, I had an apple for the day.
Right,
apple.
right.
So it's like, I felt at that point, it was just like,
Yeah.
I felt like I was alone.
Yeah,
and there
totally.
was nobody there. Like, if you guys were all there, we could go, yeah, this is a big deal. Well, I called the company afterwards, and, this is a big deal. Yeah, I get angry. That was just, yeah. You can't be slugging water all day and not have some kind of sodium or something going in your body.
Yeah.
And they said, oh, we'll refund your lunch. And I said, no, this is a big deal. You do this.
They'll refund your non-lunch.
Oh, yeah, they needed yes, we ordered a gluten-free lunch. We told them it had to be a gluten-free. They offered it. So it's like that nightmare for the gluten-free person. We're on the river, and nobody told me. And it was like, oh my God.
Wow.
And an apple, and I had some energy bars, and it was just this, they didn't get it, although they advertised it. And there was that little, probably GMO apples in there. So,
Yeah.
I had to share that.
Yeah.
We were talking about, you have the apple, and everybody else is, oh, this is a great, oh, this is great food here.
Yeah.
I'm such a freak, but, I can't do this.
And it goes to that place, the idea of being safe and not sad, because you felt safe because, oh good, they get it. They're asking about gluten-free. Yes, woohoo, I don't have to worry about packing my own meal. But again, we still have this level of hypervigilance. We still put in the energy bar just in case. Yeah.
Well, and we haven't really engaged with doing vacations or doing the things that people did.
You haven't felt safe to do it.
Oh,
Yeah.
and we hear from people going on cruises all the time, and doing this. doing that. And I would just be exhausted from the hypervigilance.
Exactly.
So that's a full-time job.
That's
for me.
why
Yeah.
I
It is.
said to my husband, it would be a vacation just to go somewhere for a week and have somebody provide safe food and be with other people that have celiac disease that was feeding us something safe
Yeah.
and that we have more energy.
It would be wholesome.
That's a vacation.
Totally, yeah. And I'm just going to check. Was that a hand in the back, or is that, yes?
Okay, maybe my husband and I look at this from a totally different aspect of a lot of people. But we are so grateful that he was actually diagnosed and he had a solution to what was going on with him. Okay? So there's no stigma. There is no exceptions. We're proud that we can find out and get him need. I'm here by myself. I'm not gluten intolerant, but he was a severe celiac where when they diagnosed him, he had less than 20% body absorption into his body. He was hospitalized. He had iron transfusions. So if we don't eat the correct way with him, he will wind up in the hospital again. You think that. And there's a man walking around with a t-shirt that says, you never die for free. But you know what, when you get down to 20% body absorption, there's a severe, possibility that you can't.
Absolutely. And, yeah.
60-some years old, and this has been going on all his life. He has lived on Nexium for a number of years. So we have found what's going on with his body. We go to a restaurant, we're not ashamed of saying, hey, this is gluten intolerant. I'm not, I can eat whatever the heck they put on front of me. But we question, there's no shame, there's no, this is the way we live. It's no different than being a vegan or anything else. You just ask, you check, you question. We have gone into a lot of restaurants that are not specialized for gluten-free, and they have made wonderful accommodations. And as we say, we tip well for those people that take care of us. But we don't look at it as a hardship, we look at it as a blessing anymore, because now we know what is going on and how we can deal with it. And we have friends, and maybe I have exceptional friends, but when they invite us over for dinner last week, they're saying, okay, this is the spices we're putting on the food, this is what we're having, is there any problems with any of this that Bill's going to eat, or will this be okay?
Fantastic.
It just has become a way of life. We're not ashamed of it. We do it. We live it. And I mean, you were talking about the cutting boards. We have 2 toasters in our house. Me, if I want something that's gluten, and him, who doesn't have. We have pots and pans that are different, but if I make something that's got gluten in it, we don't. I have cutting boards that have been sanded down, so if there's any gluten in them, I don't know where it is, because they have been totally sanded down. It is a lifestyle change that you embrace, you love, and you move forward, and you don't take the fad because you have a solution to the problem.
Exactly.
That was causing the stomach problems, that was causing the headaches, the everything, the depression, everything, and you go forward and you build on it and you go forward.
It's perfect. So that's exactly what we're talking about, the seeing, moving into a new perspective and shifting forward into that paradigm of gratitude. And the thing that's great, psychologically, it's impossible to be in gratitude and be a victim at the same time. So the more we fill our life with gratitude, the less it's possible to even feel like victims. So I love it because you're embodying it, and I love the confidence that you're talking about and how your community, and that's what I'm talking about with bringing our forces together. That's the spirit. We have nothing to be ashamed of. It's a mindset, and we're so blessed to be alive, and we're so blessed to know that there's something we can do. And you have a question or
Well,
thought?
I was going to say, I agree with everything she said, and that's what I do. Because one of the things that I do, when I'm invited to a potluck, and I have the same problem, I will have something to eat, and I know that. I take a great, big, beautiful main dish,
Yep.
and maybe some cookies. I take stuff I can eat, put it out,
And you're the superhero.
and make it really nice, make it really looks good, dress it up, and just put it down and label it gluten-free, and then I eat that.
And you see what happens? It disappears.
Oh, yeah.
It disappears. People love it. And then they're going, oh my gosh, this is gluten-free. It's possible to have a great dish that's gluten-free. So you're doing it. You're doing the transformation. I'm going to move just a little bit quicker because we're near the end. But we're hitting on everything pretty much that we need to talk about. As I mentioned, there's the emotional challenges, the shame we've been talking about. The shame can be about the health challenges we have, our bodily reactions, and the physical or other limitations, which some of that was alluded to in that video. There's also shame about being different, which we've also been addressing, or having special needs. I just want to take a moment about this special needs concept, because the idea of being needy in our culture has gotten a bad rap. I get people coming to counseling and they say, I'm just too needy. You know, my partner said I need to come because I'm too needy on them. And I say, you're needy. Okay, well, what's this mean? When we're needy, it only means one thing, usually. It usually just means that we're not getting our needs met. And, I mean, this is rocket science. So what do? We find a way to meet our needs. And we find ways to help those that we love meet their needs. It doesn't have to be pathologized. It doesn't have to, anybody has to feel bad. When people talk about being emotional eaters, emotional eating, everybody's heard that term before. That gets another bad rap. That kind of rap. Can you still hear me? Yeah. Okay, if Pavlov's dogs salivate to the sound of a bell because they've associated the bell with something yummy. Think about our lifetime from the time we're born. What's the first thing we do is we want to nurse. We want to get something yummy and look and feel and smell someone who loves us and feel connected. And then think about all the complications, all the amazing intricacies of the associations we have with food and relationships and our emotions. Who the heck is not an emotional eater? I want to meet that person. I mean, so you know, that just, because then people just beat themselves up. And so much of therapy is not even about the issue, but it's how people then perceive themselves with whatever issue, whatever story they've made. So basically I'm wanting to have a takeaway is we've already talked about the anxiety and fear a lot of cross-contamination, all blah, 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 blah. But the takeaway I want is, and we've also talked about this, especially the challenges for kids and our desire to have delicious pleasures that everyone else is able to have too. So let's be inclusive and have it be that way. But in terms of the takeaway, this concept of seeing is the acronym I have, to 3 things to see differently. One is to find skills and tools, and there's a whole bunch that you've been naming right here in this room. Skills and tools to more easily navigate life with food sensitivities, and it can be very empowering, and it can also reduce social and emotional discomfort. And you know, you're like a perfect example of how you can do that, and just everybody can change in the community. E, everyone has needs. They're just different for each of us. So we're all needy. Thank God. We need each other. We need food. We need nourishment. We need nurturance. This is what we need in life. So let's not pathologize it. And we can also educate ourselves and others to help reduce or even eliminate many of the unsafe and sad patterns and beliefs that our culture has created. And so I talked about moving from culinary outcasts to special diet superheroes. I am a self-proclaimed super diet superhero, a special diet superhero and a super diet superhero. And there we go. And our experiences living with dietary limitations equip us with a unique compassion and understanding and sensitivity that can help countless others feel better about who they are and less like a burden or inconvenience. So we can be the nicest people on the planet, and that's nice too. So I say, so let's stand proudly together as we take leadership in the food revolution that we are an important part of and emerge victors. We are victims no longer. And I know we're at pretty much the end of the time. We have Q&A. We'll have a little bit of time for Q&A, and then very brief. And then you can catch me I'm at booth 210. And if you want to buy the book, anybody who comes here today, right now, if you go to my booth before the end, my book, I'm going to give you $25 as a special deal because you hung in here with me. But do I need to stop now, or is that?
No, I had a quick
Yes.
comment.
Yes.
I'm glad you brought up the education end of things because while I agree with you, the lady in the front who was talking about why should we have to say we're celiac, but I have found sometimes that if I do say that, they're a little extra careful at certain restaurants. But the other thing is when I do have a situation come up, I try to use that as an education thing, you know. Oh, this person look, I provided rice crackers for you. Unfortunately, they're on the plate, but the other crackers. I try to use that as an educational thing to say, you know, I really appreciate you providing the rice crackers, but in the future, if you put them on a separate dish, then I can actually eat them. The other thing in education is, I go to a lot of workshops and conferences, and they try to accommodate gluten-free. You know, they always ask. And this one lady at one point put out this whole email that said, well, you know, we try the best we can, but we can't always accommodate everybody's food preferences. And I felt like I had to write her back because it was like, I'm not gluten-free because I'm choosing to be gluten-free. I'm gluten-free because I'm celiac and I get sick. It's not like somebody who chooses not to eat meat and that's their choice. If they're choosing to not eat meat because it makes them sick, then that's something. But if I didn't choose to be gluten-free, I didn't choose to be celiac, I'm not choosing to have a special diet. So you need to look at this a little differently than just so-and-so is just so demanding. They want special treatment all the time. It's different than somebody who's just choosing to avoid certain foods.
Absolutely.
We have to avoid these foods. And I don't usually come on that strong when that happens, but I felt like she needed to understand that I'm not just asking that because I feel like not eating gluten today. I'm asking that because I'm going to be sick later if I eat that.
Absolutely, yeah. And just to check in, how much time do we have for the Q&A?
We're done, but
Okay. Can we have 2 more questions? People have hands up? Okay, go ahead.
Okay. You know, my husband and I are not gluten, but because our 2 grandchildren and our daughter are, we basically follow it when they're anywhere near us. It's easier, I think. It's not easy. Don't get me wrong. It's not easy to be gluten-free, but it's easier as an adult than it is as a child.
Way easier.
Because they have to deal with school. They have to deal with school lunches and people saying, you have to eat that, when your granddaughter's saying, I can't eat that hot dog bun, and they make her stand there and eat it, or she has to go to the principal's office. I mean, this
Seriously?
This has happened. He is very involved in Scouts. He wants to be an Eagle Scout. He and his mother have developed their own little cook troop in their scouting troop. They cook gluten-free over a fire, over their gas, because they work at it. And he can go, he can enjoy everything else, so can the other kids. And his particular group not only eats gluten-free, they eat egg-free, dairy-free, and nut-free, and sugar-free. And he cooks it.
You're a superhero. And your parents are too. And your grandparents are too.
So it's difficult. I get that. But like you said, you have to decide whether or not you're going to be a victim or you're going to be thankful that you figured out why you're no longer having seizures, why you're no longer having headaches and infections, or going to the bathroom all the time, or, you know, because his little sister was diagnosed at 18 months because she quit eating.
Wow. And I just want to mention about the seizures real quickly. Very interesting. Let's follow the research, but there's definitely been cases. Dr. David Perlmutter was reporting several cases of people who had seizure disorder, could not, they're basically at a certain point, no other treatment works. They do a partial lobotomy. They remove a part of the temporal lobe of their brain. And what they've done with a few people, and I don't know for how long, they said just before we start cutting into your brain, just for fun, let's try taking you off of gluten for a month or two or whatever. And not in all cases, but many cases, the seizures stopped. And when I posted that information on Facebook, I had so many people respond that this happened with their kids, and nobody believed them. And I'm telling you, this is the kind of stuff we're going to be discovering more about. And I'm so excited that the studies are happening, but it's really important. So was there one more question? Yes, in the back. Yes.
I'm gluten-free not by choice, but I do not have celiac disease. So I do not have to be gluten-free 100%, and I'm lucky, and I understand I'm being lucky. But I want to know, there is a category between the wannabes and the people who are severely allergic. There's, I can do maybe 20%, maybe, gluten if I wanted to, and that's why I can choose what I want to eat. If I know that this restaurant has gluten with bread, I'll say, I'm not having the pasta. I want something specific that doesn't have gluten in it, so I can have this piece of bread because I know it's really good. And I understand I'm lucky on that, but I understand that people that actually like more difficult. But really, we're not all wannabes. The other day, we went out to dinner at lunch with my boss's boss, and I felt very uncomfortable. The whole deal with, asking for something very specific when I was eating. The next day, I couldn't get out of bed, and it had nothing to do with it. It had more than something to do with the area and the wheat, but it's that thing of, I'm not going to break out hives, I'm not going to, have seizures or a migraine or anything like that. I just wanted to know, it's not.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Because really what this is all about is choice. We have choices. Isn't that fantastic? And you even have choices to eat junk food. We have choices to make ourselves sick. We have choices to make ourselves well if we're able to figure that out. So it's not about any of us being like micromanaging anyone else. It's none of our business what someone puts into their body that then does whatever and then comes out of their body after whatever happens. It's really none of our business. And so to just know, and we can also choose, I think of it in 3 levels. We can choose to remediate our health. It may be that we don't have a problem with something. We can choose to coast, we're doing good enough. Maybe I can have some gluten, I'm not so bad, whatever, it's fine. We can choose that. Or we can choose to optimize and to eat everything that we can and do lifestyle things, exercise and meditation, whatever it is. But we don't have to do the optimizing. That's not everybody's choice. If we want to choose to remediate at best or even just, self-sabotage, we have that choice, and it's not for anyone else to judge. And so it's so great. We used to be free to let people, live and let live. And we can choose for ourselves what we want. And this is the food revolution. Let's just make it more empowering for everybody to be included. So I know we need to finish, but I want to thank